Hello, this is Mr. Ratoon, and this will be a partial review for Earth Science 3. That's the third Earth Science book. We do books number 2, and we do book numbers 3 at the 8th grade, and the first book is done at the 6th grade. And it's for lessons 5 through 8. It's our second learning set. We already tested on chapters or units 1 through 4, and now we're going to be having a unit test on 5 through 8. And this video just covers this page. So if you've already taken the test, you know that this is what the page is going to look like. And this should not have been a surprise to you, because if you were here for the review, I told you basically this is going to be what the page looks like. I said it'll look very, very, very similar to it. And it is very similar to it. There's just a few extra words on this that you didn't see on the test. So the test was actually a little bit easier for you. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take these diagrams. Very first thing you have to do is name the type of plate boundary shown in the diagram. Now on the test you were given the 3 types, and you can see them up here towards the top. There's convergent, divergent, and transform. So let's do that first. Name the type of plate boundary shown in the diagram. So how about this one? If you said they slide past each other and that's a transform, you are correct. So it's a transform plate boundary. So let's look at this one. We see the arrows coming together. So coming together. Is it going to be convergent or divergent? So think, if things are coming together, are they going to converge or are they going to diverge or divide? If you said they're going to converge, you are correct. So let's look at this one. The 2 arrows are pointing away from each other. What do you think? Convergent, divergent, or transform? If you're thinking divergent because they're dividing, you are correct. Now let's look at this one right here. This one has the 2 arrows coming back together again, so it's very similar to this. So this would be another example of convergent plate boundary. Now here it says explain why it is this type of plate boundary. So explain why it is this type of plate boundary. So I don't have any neat words to move in for these spots, but let's talk through these. How do you know that this is a transform plate boundary? Well, the plates slide past each other. Now in the test, some of you just said the plates slide, and that came from the video that we watched. You're right, they do slide, but all of these slide. It's just these slide past each other. So you'd have to say they slide past each other. If you just said that they slide, it's not enough, because they all slide. But if you said they slide past each other, you're doing a good job and you got it right. So when we look at a convergent, simply, why did you pick convergent? Well, you picked convergent because they were converging. They were coming together. Absolutely. And that would be the answer for this convergent one. Why did you pick convergent? They're coming together. You don't need to go into more detail than that other than they're coming together. Just like this one, divergent. Explain why it is this type of plate boundary. Why? If you said because the plates are moving away from each other, you're correct. That's all you need for that one. Now, the next one, give the type of plates that are interactive. You notice it says give the types of plates that are interacting. Now, we had an X in this one because you didn't have to do it. We didn't talk about it, so we didn't hold it on you. We weren't going to test you on it. Now, some of you looked at an X here, then you just put a couple X's in other spots. I'm not sure why, because it says give the types of plates that are interacting. So we have this first one right here, or the second one, but the first one we have to answer. It's convergent plate boundary. Now you notice there's no subduction zone. So that should tell you that it's a continental and a continental. Now some of you in the test, you just put continental. And I really didn't know what you meant by that. Did you mean that there's 2 continental plates? Or did you mean there was just one and you didn't know what the other one was? So I marked it wrong. Remember, you're supposed to be selling your answers to me. You want me to know 100% for sure that you know what you're doing. Now some people put 2 continental plates. Or some people put they wrote continentals. So they made it plural, so I knew exactly what it was. And I know some of you are going to come back and say, well, this says give the type of plates. So it's continental plates. But you were hoping that I would infer that's what you meant. And I wasn't sure, so I wasn't going to give you credit. So make sure you always go above and beyond and put everything in that you need to put in. So let's look at this next one. It's a divergent plate boundary. Now, I'm going to give you some leeway with this. Ideally, you would say it's oceanic, oceanic. And this is primarily happening on the ocean's floors. Now, every once in a while, you'll see this on land, like the East African Rift, or the Great Eastern African Rift. And so you could put continental, continental, but the very best answer is oceanic, oceanic. Now, when we look at this last one right here, you see that is one plate subducting underneath another. So in order for that to happen, the best answer you can have is oceanic, continental. Now, some people, if you put oceanic, oceanic, you're also correct. Because if two oceanic plates collide, one will subduct underneath the other plate. So far, we've gone through all these. Now, you had all these words ahead of time. We had a reviewing class, and some of the classes we went through these. And it really depended on you. If you would have said, hey, Mr. Rattoon, can we go through all these words? Absolutely. The reviews were yours. I answered the questions you had for me. So let's go through these words. Now, on the test, it said you can use these words multiple times. So it's not just one and done. So key features and examples associated with each boundary type. Okay, key features. Here we go. We got plates sliding past each other. Now, first of all, what's a key example? When you look through here, there's some different examples like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, San Andreas Fault, Great Rift in Africa. If you said an example of that is San Andreas Fault, you're absolutely correct. Now, what kind of things happen there? Do we get earthquakes? You might say, yep, there's earthquakes in California all the time. Volcanoes, not on a transform fault boundary, there's no subduction. So you're not going to, no subduction, so that's right here, which means there's no trench. Is there a ridge? No. So here is a convergent plate boundaries. Now, we talked about this multiple times in class. This is where the two continents that come together crumple. So it's going to be creating the Himalayan mountains. We talked about the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate, the underside of the Eurasian plate colliding. So are we going to get earthquakes there? Absolutely. Are we going to get volcanoes? You might look at that and say, well, maybe, but what is there not? There's no subduction zone. If there's no subduction zone, there's no trench. Now, some people, when you took the original test, you put ridge. Ridge is really referring to those underwater mountain ranges. So I wouldn't put ridge for this. So let's look at this next one. This is divergent. Okay, so the plates are separating. Now, when we look at examples, which one best fits for that? If you said the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, you are correct. We probably studied this type more than anything because we studied it earlier in the unit 2 when we covered seafloor spreading, and now later in the unit as well. So, okay, we've got the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. So is it going to have earthquakes? You might say, yep, it's going to have earthquakes. Is it going to have volcanoes? Absolutely. Is it going to have a trench? Nope. There's no subduction zone. Are you going to have a ridge? Well, it's called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. So yeah, it's going to have a ridge. So these are the words that you would have to have in this spot here. Now for the final one, this is a convergent plate boundary. You said that before. It's an oceanic plate subducting underneath a continental plate. Why? Because the oceanic plate is more dense than the continental plate. So, what is this going to be? Well, this is going to be your Andes Mountains. And on the original test, some of you put multiple ones. You like said the Himalayas are the same as the Andes, and you had them in the same box, which they're formed in very different ways, so you couldn't have that. So when we look at the Andes Mountains, so are we going to have earthquakes? Absolutely. Now remember I just said there's a subduction zone. So if you have a subduction zone, you're also going to have a trench. And subduction zones can create what? Volcanoes. So this is what I would expect you to have for this last one. Now we use all those words except the Great Rift in Africa, and if you had to put that somewhere, you would have it here, but you probably know that it's not used on your test. So this is the only difference. So when I said this page was very, very, very close to the test, it was very, very close. The only extra word on this is the Great Rift found in Africa. So this is the review of this page. I would hopefully everybody will watch it and everybody will learn from it and study, study, study. If you have any questions, again, please call please stop by, please email me, and we will sit down and go through this if you need to together, so that way when you take the retake, you'll do the very best that you can do. Thanks.